Hello everyone, the Nerdy Steve here, and today we're going to be playing a game where I'm going to look at the complete Alchemy Horizons Baldur Gate card image gallery, spoiler, it just came out, without really looking at it beforehand, and talk about cards that I think might be good in Alchemy and Historic. I'm not really going to talk about Limited, but maybe. But yeah, this is just me going in. I did a cursory look before because there are a couple cards I just wanted to bring up stuff for, but for the most part, haven't really thought of this thoroughly and just wanted some gut reactions to cards. I don't even know necessarily what cards are unique to Magic Arena, what are reprints, if there's anything new. So let's just have some fun and figure it out if I'm right or wrong about anything. So the first card here, and I don't know if this is going to be good. Champions of Tyr is a 4/3 creature with flying and double team. And when Champions of Tyr enters the battlefield, you get a boon with when you cast your next creature spell, that creature enters the battlefield with your choice of a +1/+1 counter, a flying counter, or a lifelink counter. Okay. So two things. First, double team. This has two unique to this set and Magic Arena abilities on it. So Double Team is an ability that's on a creature, and when it attacks, you create a copy of that creature into your hand, and they both lose Double Team. So when this Champions of Tyr attacks, you will get another copy of it into your hand, but that copy won't be able to get future copies in the future. And then it also has something called boons, which is kind of a nice arena way to phrase like kind of delayed triggered abilities that are common on a lot of cards, most notably in Kamigawa Dynasty, Kakazan, whatever, the stage 2 of the saga, where the next creature you cast enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter. These boons kind of modify something else that you will do in a turn. And so what is cool about Champions of Tyr is it enters the battlefield, you attack with it on turn 5, and then the copy in your hand will now enter the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter or flying or lifelink or whatever you want, right? And that's really good. Really good. It kind of plays in a very, very similar space to Legion Angel, which is the 4/3 from, was it Kaldheim? Where when it entered the battlefield, you get to search from outside the game any number of copies. So you would have 1 in your main deck and 3 in your sideboard, and in a lot of mono white decks, you would cast it and then pull 3 more angels in your hand. This is, again, it plays in a very similar space, but it's not necessarily better or worse than Legion Angel. If your opponent can kill this before it attacks, you're not getting that additional creature. But if you do have the creature, then maybe if you do get to attack, maybe Champions of Tyr is better. If your opponent does remove the first Champion of Tyr before you ever get to get another copy into your hand, you do get the effect of the boon no matter what. Now, that doesn't make it better necessarily than the Legion Angel, but at least it is something. Now, is this card better than Legion Angel? Well, I think they're only going to be legal in Alchemy together for like a month or two, so it probably won't matter. But I think it might be. I know in best of 3, at least in Alchemy, like your sideboard is very, very important, and so having a 4 drop that doesn't require sideboard slots is like actually really, really relevant. And so maybe that kind of pushes it over the edge. I never found Legion Angel to be that powerful. If the additional bodies, it just like, it always kind of felt like a win more type card, and maybe this is too. Like, if you get to attack with it and it's good, it feels like you're winning regardless. But I don't know. So I don't think this card is going to break anything. It might be okay. I don't think it will be really, really played that much in Alchemy, but I think it's probably one of the cards that will be at least relevant and worth knowing. And it also had Double Team and Boon, so now I don't have to stop and talk about anything else really that stands out. Uh, Patriarchs Humiliation. Target creature perpetually loses all abilities. I can say that. Then Patriarchs Humiliation deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control. So this is similar to what Kabira Takedown, I think, was the card. But it's white removal. I don't think it's really that good. I don't think if you're a white deck and you have removal, you're gonna want this, because not being able to kill planeswalkers or deal damage to planeswalkers is just not great, and I don't think you need the creature removal there. Let's see. We have some limited cards. I think Sea Stower Imprisonment's gonna be really good in limited. Soon's Intervention is choose one or more. You create 2/2/2 White Knight creature tokens. Seek a non-land permanent card with mana value 3 or less. Destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, and target player gains 3 life. Huh. So I think it's very similar to Farewell, obviously, in the sense that, like, Farewell is a board wipe that is probably idealistically getting rid of all your opponent stuff. Soon's Intervention seems like you're you're more of like giving yourself an advantage than necessarily annihilating everything of your opponents. The destroy target artifact enchantment is, you're destroying your opponent's stuff. But like if you're creating 2/2 knights instead of destroying all creatures, in a lot of ways it's kind of like building up your presence. This also seeks a non-land permanent with mana value 3 or less, so you're gonna get something. So probably like a portable hole, maybe in Alchemy. It seems fine. I think Soon's Intervention in Alchemy, it seems like you want Farewell in a lot of different ways, and Soon's Intervention, I don't know if you want Farewell in your deck. I don't know if Soon's Intervention is a good alternative, but if you are less of a maybe control deck and more of a mid-range deck, that so you wouldn't necessarily want to run Farewell, like let's say if you are a green, white, red, copper ready deck or something like that, right? And you have maybe a couple of enchantments on the battlefield and you don't want to destroy everything like Farewell would, Soon's Intervention would be probably good in that type of deck or situation. Because again, you get to destroy problematic permanents, you gain some life, you get creatures, and you're drawing a permanent card from your deck. So it does a lot of really cool things. And I like in Alchemy right now, I know there are a lot of enchantment and artifact heavy decks that have all these permanents on the battlefield. So destroying a lot of that stuff while, adding more to your board is good. I wouldn't be surprised if this saw some play, but I don't think it'd be great. Then we have Sword to the Legion. When Sworn to the Legion enters the battlefield, non-token creatures you control perpetually gain Double Team. Whenever you cast a creature spell, it perpetually gains Double Team. This is just a cool mythic. Not gonna really be playable in anything, I think. Like, unless there's some really niche combo, but paying 6 mana to essentially just get a copy of another card. Vladimir and Godfrey, nothing. Ancient Gold Dragon, it's cute. Archivist of Ogma is a 2/2 with flash, and whenever an opponent searches their library, you gain 1 life and draw a card. I think this is good. I don't know how good it is. I don't know how common searching is. Like, I'd have to think about it and think about specific matchups where it might be very, very relevant. I know in some of the ramp decks, like with green, they search the library for a lot of lands. Not a lot of decks play Fabled Passage in Historic. And I can't think of anything in Alchemy. A lot of Alchemy cards seek instead of search now, so it loses a little power there. But if there is a deck that searches libraries, this is gonna be really really good, and that's kind of really it. Like Containment Priest, like all those other white creatures that hate on specific things, if that becomes popular, this is good. Ascend from Avernus. Return all creature and planeswalker cards with mana value XLS from your graveyard to the battlefield. Exile Ascend from Avernus. It's cool. I think it does a lot of just clunky stuff. Nothing. Let me look at Vladimir and Godfrey. It's a zombie knight. You can return Vladimir and Godfrey from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. It perpetually gets +1/+1. Activate only if you control a 1/1 creature. I think in a control deck, it might be. No, not even in control deck. I was like, maybe you can play Castle, the white castle that makes a 1/1 in historic, and use this as like a creature that can always come back with that. But if you're spending your mana to do that, then you probably have other things to do with your mana, and you don't want to put this in your deck. So no, never mind. I skipped it for a reason. I think it might be fine, not really playable anywhere. Nothing else that, and I'm just looking because I don't want to spend hours talking about every single card because I probably could, but like instead of just going Priest of Ancient Lore, Rally Maneuver, we have the Rescuer Chingwa. So this is a 2/2 flash. When it enters the battlefield, you may return another target permanent you control to its owner's hand. I kind of like this effect. I don't know if it's very, very good, but I like it. I think I can't think of anything in Alchemy where this is really good. Being able to return maybe different sagas is fine. I don't know if any elemental deck in historic would want it, but it wouldn't surprise me if this is good. 2/2 flash, what like we saw with the Archivist is fine. And this does some cool things. I don't know if they're good things, but maybe time will tell. Just a bunch of reprints. All right, and then we go here. Column Jin Emperor is a card I'm not going to read. I think it does stuff, but it's good and limited. Nothing will play in Constructed. All right, this is one of the cards I saw and I wanted to talk about. Snowborn Simulacrum. It's cut off here. Or maybe it's Simulacra. I'm not going to pretend I know. So you conjure a duplicate of each of X target non-token permanents into your hand. Those cards perpetually gain. You may spend as though it were mana of any color to cast this spell. If X is 5 or more, you may put one of them from here onto the battlefield. So, you can, for let's say 3 mana at the least, you can target any non-token permanent into your hand and it goes into your hand. Beautiful. We get it. It's like a clone, kind of, but it goes into your hand instead of onto the battlefield. But it just doesn't do creatures. It can target permanent. So for 3 mana, you can duplicate a land, and then you can cast that land if you really, really need to get a land drop that turn. But it does something really, really cool with Hinata. Dawn Crowned. I love how it's cut off there, so I hope you can appreciate it a little. But Hinata Dawn Crowned. And this is a card that goes around in Standard. But the important line of text here is spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each target. So with Hinata out on the battlefield and Snowborn Simulacrum, you can target every single permanent and conjure a card into your hand. That might be really good. And then we have signature spells. So when signature spells enters the battlefield, seek 2 instant and or sorcery cards with mana value 3, then exile them. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may copy a card exiled with signature spells. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So, 6 mana is a lot. I think it'll be a fun Dirtly card, but I can't see any any type of counter magic or anything, or not counter magic, just any type of combo that works well with it, you it doesn't do anything the turn it enters the battlefield. And then it also only does one thing each turn. So, I don't know, it just seems like a lot for nothing. I saw some people talking about it. I don't think it's good. And then again, Ancient Silver Dragon, just some cute stuff, some AFR reprints, which are, not relevant. Displacer Kitten is a 4 mana 2/2. Whenever you cast a non creature spell, exile up to one target non land permanent you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. I don't think this might do something cool in Historic, but we're gonna probably have to figure that out. You can get like there are some combos that haven't really impressed me yet that people have been posting, so I don't think it might be good there, but there's so many things you can do in Historic, so whatever. And I think Alchemy is the same thing. I think it's just a cute card, literally, but I don't there's like types of things where you can like cast something to exile and retrigger enter the battlefield, and then like you can keep on exiling stuff, but nothing that really, I don't know. If you think there's anything cool with Displacer Kitten, let me know. I don't really see anything. Again, nothing that really excites me from, an alchemy or historic point of view. Yeah, and of course I could be missing stuff, but oh, Seek New Knowledge is actually cool. So it's very reminiscent of Painful Bond, which was recently nerfed. But you seek two non-land cards, then put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library. Now, you only are going to get non-land cards, but then you can put a land card back from your hand. And I think that might be really, really good. I like ensuring that you're getting two non-land cards is really, really fantastic. And so it means like sometimes when you have a draw spell that's draw two cards, sometimes you'll get two lands and it's like, oh, woe was me, I'm gonna cry, the shuffler is so terrible, right? Um and ensuring that you get non-land cards is great. Now the problem is if you top deck Seek New Knowledge and you have no cards in your hand, it's really just cycling for a non-land card, which is still fine. Again, top decking a cycling card and knowing that you're going to get a card is really good. Something that's relevant. But I think this is gonna be good. Like, it just means you're gonna have to not play out your last land in your hand sometimes, which shouldn't be a problem for a lot of people, but there's also potentially a combo if you just have a lot of lands in your deck, and you can always ensure that when you seek new knowledge, maybe you can get seek new knowledge and a Thassa's Oracle, and then you come really, really close to decking yourself, and maybe that is cool in a way. So, but I don't know if that's even in alchemy or irrelevant in historic, but I think this card's really, really good. I think it's going to see a lot of play, is the ultimate thing. Again, nothing that I love. Black Market Connections is a card that Phyrexian Arena is one of my favorite cards of all time. And I'm kind of sad because this is almost strictly better than it. But I don't think it's gonna be anything relevant. Deadly Dispute is a card I'm very, very surprised. It's very, very good in Alchemy, very, very popular. And I'd say almost format defining in a lot of ways. And it being in Alchemy for another year is a choice, I think. Let's see, nothing else. Just some cards. Nope. Oh, Skullport Merchant didn't recognize it with that art, but again, nope. None of the cool things excite me. Let's read Cardoom, Patron of Flames. I have no idea what it does, but it has a lot of text, so maybe it's fine. Whenever Cardoom, Patron of Flames, attacks, put a flame counter on it. Then seek a card with mana value equal number of flame counters on it and exile that face down. So you attack with it once, you get a flame counter, and then you exile a 1 mana value card under it, and then you get 2, then 3, then 4. And then you have to discard seems bad. That's it. Tiefling Outcast. Other demon, devils, imps, and tieflings you control get +1/+0 on double team. I don't think it's good. But I could maybe see it being fine. Like demons, devils, and imps, I don't think they're a really, really relevant tribe right now, but maybe. I don't know if this is good though, but it it doesn't deal. I don't know. It's probably not even good. So never mind. But it piqued my interest. Utgard Fury. I know people have been talking about this. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage to any target. 3 mana, 4 damage. Fine. Damage isn't removed from creatures or opponent controls during cleanup steps. So what this means is in Magic the Gathering, right? Damage on your creatures end every turn or goes away. So if you have a 0/8, it can block a 2/2 every single turn for the rest of the game and live. But with Utgard Fury, it can only block it 4 times because then it will have 8 damage marked on it, and that damage never goes away, and it dies. Now, that's not going to apply to standard a lot of times, but in certain matchups, like maybe this is a really, really good red answer to mono green. Sometimes your opponent's big creatures, your removal can't really deal with it as effectively maybe as other cards or as other colors. Like you need to use 2 of your removal spells to kill something. But now with Utgard Fury, you can, block when you chump block early on and you draw your removal spell. You're still like kind of 2-for-1ing yourself, but it gives you a lot more leniency and able to do it over turns instead of have to kill it in one single turn there. So it's fine. I think it probably will see play, but I don't know. Haste double team, nothing. I don't see anything except a lot of reprints. Reckless Barbarian. It seems very innocuous, but sacrificing creature for 2 mana, you get to have 5 mana on turn 3, which is a lot. I don't know I don't know if it's good, but this card kind of stuck out at me in that what type of decks it can enable. So I don't necessarily think it's going to be really, really good, but this card I'm looking out for. I don't know if it would be a dragon necessarily build, though it is a dragon, which is good to notice. But I don't know. There's something about it that seems really, really good. Storm's King Thunder can make a lot of copies, but it's just cute. Again, nope. You line up the shot is for 1 green mana, it's an instant where you can draw a card, so basically cycle it. Or you could conjure a plummet or a naturalize in your hand. Now, depending on the format, these types of effects can be very, very commonly main decked, and they have, they can go into the sideboard. And I think this is a really, really good effect. And I think it's going to be a good card. I don't think it will be main deck, but the versatility of you can cycle it for 1 green mana. So in a lot of instances, right, you're just going to be like, oh, I don't need this, and you can cycle it, and it's very, very cheap. But being able to, let's say you, on turn one, you don't have a play, and you know what deck your opponent's on because it's game two or three, or you can just guess. If you do on turn one, when you would otherwise, not use your mana, you can get the discount on the plummet and or naturalize, right? So you can kind of be very mana. This gives you a lot of flexibility to be very mana efficient, and I think it's really, really good. Again, it's not a you're gonna probably not start this out with four of in a deck or anything like that, but I think it's a very, very good sideboard card, and it will see play. Again, nothing cute, or everything's cute, but a lot of this is limited, and we know about limited players. Prosperous Innkeeper will see play. Surprise. None of these gold cards really seem have like got to me. I think they're again a lot of these are cute. Tasha and Holy Archmage might be fine. So it's a 4 mana Planeswalker with 4 loyalty. The +1 is until your next turn, whenever a creature attacks you or Tasha, put a -1/-1 counter on that creature. So in different matchups, right, this is also just a good card without a quote unquote good card. It's a relevant card in maybe aggro against aggro decks, right? Because you get to kind of not necessarily fog your opponent's stuff, right? Like you're not preventing all combat damage, but you are slowly making the attacks very ineffective because it's -1/-1 counters. And you can also probably kill a lot of things if your opponent has a wide enough board. So it has a pretty defensible +1 creature that also impacts you as like the control player or whatever type of player where the creatures can't ignore Tasha if they're an aggro deck because those creatures will die over time. And then the -2 is target opponent puts a creature card of their choice from the graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So this requires your opponent's creatures to die to use, which Tasha's +1 is helpful at. But if your opponent has something in the graveyard, you can immediately reanimate it. They would only have to have one though because they choose. So against certain players, it's probably not that great. Like it's going to be good in general. People don't put bad creatures in their deck, but giving them the choice of what they can do in the situation is probably not the best for you. But it is something that you can do, right? And so we have like an okay -2 ability and a +1 pretty decent defense ability. What is a -6? Target opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal 3 creature cards. Put those cards onto the battlefield under your control. That player puts the rest into their graveyard. Got it. Okay, everyone. The -6 doesn't do anything unless your opponent has creatures, which isn't always gonna be a promised thing. Obviously, you wouldn't bring Tasha in against people who don't have creatures you can't do, right? But it's like okay. So she pluses she does her +1 until, to kill your opponent's board. So obviously good against creature decks. And then you get 3 random creatures that are good. I talked about this card too long. It's gonna be fine, maybe, but I don't nothing, jumps out as great. And again, nothing here really. I wish there were cards that excited me, but nope. Gorian Wise Mentor. Whenever you cast an adventure spell, you may copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. Maybe the adventure deck wants more Lucky Clovers. Maybe it's a one of there, but other than that, can't really figure out anything. Minsk and Boo, I don't think is fantastic. Prosper Tonebound. Again, none of these cards really stand out to me as being incredibly relevant to Alchemy or Historic, or shaking up the metagame in what we are looking at right now. And we're probably going to get nerfs, so some things might be good. Oh, now we get to the specialized things. Oh my god, everyone. So, specialized is an ability where you pay mana and you discard a color or a land type of your choice, and you change your card to another side. So for Clement, you could discard a white card, a blue, a black, red, or green, and it becomes that color in a different card type. So if you only have white black cards, you're not going to be able to discard Clement unless like you discard a Rafine's whatever, because that's an island. But other than that, like if you have a deck that's only monocolored, like if you only have mono white with Clement, you're only going to get Clement Life Acolyte. Okay? So now let's actually look at what Clement does. Because I think this one is interesting in that for 2 mana for a 2/2, when Clement Novice Acolyte enters the battlefield, creature cards in your hand perpetually get +1/+1. I think that might be good. It's really hard to say because it only affects cards in your hand, but if you do like, I don't know, a turn 1 creature, a turn 2 Clement, and if your elite spellcaster is a 4/2 flyer, that seems pretty good, right? And like I think at the baseline, I don't know if it's better than what is the Acolyte. I mean, that card is nerfed in Alchemy. Luminant Aspirant, right? But I think Clement has the potential to be at least a 1-drop in these different really white aggressive decks. And so that's my first instinct, but then like you have the specialized too, which is you can discard a card from your hand to make Clement one of these others. And so if you're running a mono white deck with Clement, you will have Clement Life Acolyte. It becomes a 3/3, and when this creature specializes, you get a boon with when you cast your next creature spell, that creature enters the battlefield with a lifelink counter on it. The mono white version I don't think is particularly wonderful or appealing. Obviously, if you can discard a planes because you don't have anything, you at least then get the boon and an extra power and toughness. And 3/3 lifelink actually in certain matchups isn't really that bad, right? So on turn 2 you can Clement, and then turn 3 specialize it and make it a 3/3. That's fine. I like it's nothing. It's something extra to do in addition to +1/+1 here. So Clement Knowledge Acolyte is when this creature specializes, seek 3 non-land permanents, choose one of those cards, and shuffle the rest into your library. So this one is a 3/4 vigilance, which is that's a really big body, right? And really relevant. And you can, so for this you would need blue, so either discard an island or a blue creature in hand. But I think this is really good because you get to it kind of draws you a card in addition to it becoming +1, getting +1/+2 in vigilance. I think this is pretty decent. It's a really relevant body. So on turn 2 you can Clement, and then turn 3 specialize and attack for 3/4. Like that's not something I hate. But I also look at the white-black version. So when the specializes, create 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. Again, very good. And this is what I like about this ability. It allows Clement to live in a lot of different archetypes and a lot of diversity. And I think that's really cool, allowing card to do a lot of different things. And I know a lot of people were overwhelmed by these specialized cards, but I think like in play and in practicality, once you understand that, like, oh, I only have to worry about these two choices, it becomes a lot less underwhelming, I think. But so we have the white black, we have Clement, Tempest, Acolyte, which is the red one. It's a 2/3 double strike. Whenever it is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to any target. That's fantastic. Uh, really, really good. And this becomes a 4/4 Clement that when it leaves battlefield, create a 4/4 green Ox creature token, which is great, right? The card you discard a card and you basically pump up you're attacking for 4 on turn 3, which is good. And then it's when it leaves the battlefield, so if your opponent removes it, you get a huge creature. That's so good. I think the white green one already seems amazing, and it leaves the battlefield. So when you blink it, you get to do it again. Like it's great. I think Clement's gonna see a lot of play. I I had no idea this card existed up until like 5 minutes ago, but I think Clement's gonna be really really good. And I look at all these different versions, and I think they all might see play for different reasons. Uh, Lazel just that's a lot of mana. That's a lot of mana. 4 mana and yeah. No, I don't see anything that I like right now. I'm going over it really really quickly, but for 5 mana, no. Lulu is not good in constructed. I don't think Rasad at its base, when it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until this leaves the battlefield. It is like a brutal Cathar type thing, but it doesn't do anything really, really good. I think Allure is good for limited. Gale is a card. Gale Conduit of the Arcane is a card that I think might see play. So let's look at Gale Conduit of the Arcane. So it's a 2/3 for 4 mana, but specialized 2, and when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So you have to cast it, and you return an instant and sorcery from your graveyard to your hand. So it has a very mediocrely cost, right? It's like you wouldn't play this for like if it didn't have specialized, right? It's like not particularly close. It's like okay, but it's gonna be a 2 for 1, but it's nothing, really really wonderful. So we're looking for the specialized to okay. Let's say we have this deck with Gale, and it's a blue black removal or blue red removal, and it has a lot of things. So we want the 2 for 1. If we Gale, what are we getting? And so if you're in blue, when you special or white when you specialize, surprise, it turned to a different color than I thought. When you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 white Pegasus creature token with flying. Doesn't seem particularly wonderful because you're doing this on turn 4, turn 5 you specialize, and only 1/1s. Like, no, that's not good. You can do that type of effect with less colors, maybe not in Alchemy, but in Historic. So this doesn't work for me. The mono blue one, we did it right. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card and discard a card. Again, nothing particularly good. It allows everything to loot, but that's a lot of mana to invest in that. So nothing. I can't imagine these being good. Let's see, for blue black. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, each opponent loses 2 life. Again, nothing. You so are you an if you're an aggressive blue black deck, there's that wants your opponent to lose life. You want something that is a little better than a 2/3 for 4 mana. And I could see this potentially doing well in maybe like there's some type of combo deck where if you can specialize it, then you can just kill your opponent in 1 turn. But unless that's the case, this is no. The red one is when you cast an instant sorcery spell, it perpetually Gale Storm Conduit gains creatures you control get +1/+0. No, that's cute. And the green one is whenever you cast an instant sorcery spell, put 2+1/+1 counters on target creature. Yeah, no, Gale isn't doing it for me. It's a lot of mana. It's like a decent effect, but it just maybe if Gale costs 3, but 6 mana for something, no. Emoin doesn't do anything that I love. Not a fan of Veil. No. Oh, okay. Let's look at Shadowheart Sharon Cleric. So it's a 2/2 for 2 that has Death Touch. Eh. It has Specialized too, but you only activate it if the player has 13 or less life. Interesting. Tell me more. At the beginning of your end step, Shadowheart Sharon Cleric deals 1 damage to each player. So that is kind of a good effect. If you're gonna be playing Shadowheart, you're gonna be a very, very aggressive deck. So you want things that can deal damage even when you're not attacking. So this is good, but the flip side, right, has to be something really, really, really wonderful for us to have to play this not necessarily very aggressive creature. I mean, it's aggressive, but if we're playing an aggressive deck, we need our opponent down to 13 life. And so we need the other side to be worth all this investment we're doing. So the white-black one is at the beginning of your end step, it deals 1 damage to each player. Okay. And whenever you lose life during your turn, you create a 2/2 white knight creature token. That's really good in an aggressive deck. So they all become 4/4s. I'm just going to flip them all right now. The blue one is whenever you lose life during your turn, draw a card. So you, what is it? You specialize it. You then start drawing a card whenever you say go. That seems amazing. The mono black one is, oh, I already flipped it. It has lifelink. In certain matchups, that might be really, really good. Having a 4/4, death touch lifelinker. Oh, that's pretty great. And I'll go about why that's really, really good in a bit. Shadowheart Cleric of War. At the beginning, so this one, whenever you lose life during your turn, it deals that much damage to each opponent. Which, I saw that there was like a combo with Adanto Vanguard and Historic, which is a creature that you can pay for life to do something, and it's a very aggressive creature. But you would need that in this deck. There might be a black version of it, but you would need to have white cards and the Shadowheart, so you'd have to be Mardu, which is a lot of steps to like kill your opponent, and I don't think it's too powerful, but that's something to keep in mind. But without that combo, which is, a detour, it's good. You cast it, and now your opponent's losing 2 life every turn, which is a really quick clock, and even if they're not, if they can block and have chump blockers, it does stuff. And if you have other ways to deal damage to yourself, you greatly increase that clock for your opponent. So that's good. And Shadowheart, Circle of Twilight, it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Got it. And whenever you lose life during your turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, so it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's great. My initial big problem is all of these flip sides are great, but the initial 13 life is a lot to ask for, and I don't know if decks will be able to be that aggressive in this format to reliably flip it. So this card I'm definitely looking out for. But one thing that I brought up before is what I really like about this is no matter what shell you have, like if it's a mono black deck, you can only flip it here. But if you're a Orzhov deck or a Dimir deck, you always have the black option available. And I think that's really, really important because 4/4 Death Touch Lifelink isn't going to be as good in some matchups as it would against others, right? Sometimes you just really need those cards to out advantage your opponent, or you need more creatures to go wider or to chump block, because the creatures do different things, or to be more resilient against removal. But sometimes the 4/4 Death Touch lifelink is just exactly what you need, and it's really, really good, and in the places where you want it, it's going to be so relevant. And I think that is just a really good baseline for this, no matter what version you're playing. And that's why, again, with Cleric of Twilight and Cleric of War, it's beautiful. Really, really great. Viconia does a lot. I think I don't think it's necessarily gonna. If graveyard stuff is more relevant in Alchemy, this can see play. It's a very, very effective, repeatable graveyard removal, and it does some cool things, but I don't think it's better than if you're playing this in those formats, right? Maybe Alchemy will have a graveyard, but there are just other better graveyard things to do because you won't have time to like specialize it really and get the effect. But the specialized ability is fine. Again, I don't think it's anywhere near as good as this card. I think this card, while is just a lot more aggressive, but maybe they go in the same deck. I don't know. I just think Viconia doesn't do a lot of. In a graveyard heavy metagame, it will be fine, basically. But it's not anything that gives me joy. It might see play, though. No, I'm not reading that. Nope, doesn't seem good. Karlach is interesting because it can be activated from your graveyard. Because when you specialize it, you discard a card from your hand and you return from your graveyard. And it does cool things. I could see it being played. I don't think it's going to be amazing or wonderful. But being able to... A 2/2 first strike is very underwhelming, so the front side isn't great. But maybe if you mill yourself a couple times, you can play one of this, but I wouldn't. Initially, I think it's just fine. Will Pack Bound Duelist. What does the front side? When it enters the battlefield, gain control of target artifact or creature an opponent controls with mana value or less until the end of your next turn. So that's actually kind of fine. Because you gain control of something and you get to keep it in certain matchups. Maybe like against werewolves, being able to steal a werewolf and have it as a blocker is great. But once you hit 7 mana, you can specialize it right away. So let's look at the other sides. When this specializes, you may sacrifice another creature or an artifact. So you always get to like sacrifice what you steal. And this brings back something. What does this do? You get to return an instant or sorcery. You draw 3 cards, or opponent loses 5 life. You gain another mate attack phase. Or this gets +3/+3. So what it really is doing is you get to steal something and then use it to your advantage for like a turn. And then you can sacrifice it the following turn or the turn you cast it if you have enough mana and a card in your hand. It's fine. I don't think might be good in special instances. But, like, I don't think you'd ever have 4 of in your deck. Jaheira. Jaheira's interesting. So, 2 mana, 2/3, just like what was the other card, is like, it's decent. Nothing too great. But this has hexproof from artifacts and enchantments, which is, if in historic, like an artifact heavy deck might be good. But being able to specialize, so you discard a card from your hand, and you get to destroy something. So it's only of 1 time, but you do get a bigger creature. This gets counters. You get to scry. Opponents lose 3 life. What does this do? The next spell or creature spell gets +1/+0 in haste. And this is you gain 4 life. It's like fine. I think. I don't know if it's amazing than any of the other like 2 mana green creatures that destroy artifacts and enchantments. But, you know, it's fine. It might see play. I already talked about Lucamina. Again, fine, might see play. I don't think this. Wilson is interesting. 2 mana, 2/2 reach, trample ward. Like, so you have a creature that's like gonna like hard to block and kill, and it specializes into like these really, really big cards with evasion. This has trample and can't be blocked, by the way. That then once you specialize it, what it does is in the future you get to make other creatures you have a little better. He's fine. I don't think it's anything great. The gates are fine. Oyam Minaratak Polar Werebear. It's a giant bear. Has hexproof if it hasn't dealt damage yet. So your opponent not going to be able to kill it on turn 4. And whenever it deals combat damage to the player, you sacrifice a food. You get to sacrifice food, which we all know I love. You can draft a card from the spellbook. When you do, add triple blue. So I don't think there's really any other ways to create food in alchemy right now. Like, maybe the witch gets witch's oven, whatever that is, but I don't know. So there's a lot of things here that it gets. I don't know if any of these are good or if it's worth it. It feels like none of this is good in alchemy. A 4-mana 4/5 is like fine, but I can't imagine it being good. I just stopped because it had a spell book. Alright, the Hourglass Coven, this card does a lot of things, but when it enters the battlefield, you get to get 2 of these Warlock cards and put them onto the battlefield. And I think this is actually good. They do a lot of different things, and it's kind of like not overwhelming, because when you're drafting, it'll be fine. But like how these work, I think this card might see play. For 6 mana, even if you like flicker it, it does cool things. But for 6 mana, you get a bunch of creatures, and I think there's enough things to do where I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it, where it's a lot of bodies, it's a lot of relevant stuff, it's very aggressive, and I can see it seeing play. I don't think it's gonna necessarily be tier 1 or anything, but it may be a 1 end. I think it just offers a lot for 6 mana, I think, and there's potential to blink it, which I like. I don't know, that's also like, I want this card to be better than it probably is gonna be, and that's fine. Also, now that I think about it, this is just a fun card. And that's okay. Well, everyone, I hope you kind of enjoyed that quick little look. I don't know, those were my first reactions, and I hope some of it made sense. Maybe it didn't, that's fine. But regardless, if you haven't already, you should totally like, comment, subscribe. You can watch me stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/thenerdysteve. And yeah, thank you for being here, hanging out, and chilling and watching me rant. Yeah. But with that, I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are, and thanks for watching. Bye.